All right, everyone, here's a mild proposition. If everybody in the world were to incrementally increase their happiness, their output just a little bit, if they learned a new skill, if they stopped being an asshole a little more often, if they were kinder, more involved with their families, if they took up a side job for a few hours a week, if they grew an extra row of crops and gave it to their local food shelf, would we not have considerably improved society while only making tiny incremental improvements to our own lives? Of course we would. This is an underlying concept of what I hope will make a return in this 20s as they did in the last 20s, the idea of volkishness, the idea of a togetherness, a communal element without the communism, thankfully, a tribal element, as it were, in nations, whether it's on ethnic or civic, the guidelines really makes no difference. Here's what I suggest. Over the next decade, here's instead of having a New Year's resolution, have a new decade's resolution. Just make some incremental improvements and stop being so black-pilled. What's happened now is that a lot of people, the internet tends to promulgate negativity a lot because it almost incentivizes us to focus on it. The negativity is what gets the attention, that draws attention in. It sucks everyone else in the periphery in like a black hole and constantly demoralizes them. We tend to fixate on the negative because the negative is what gets more attention immediately. Algorithms, machines that have no sense of right or wrong, amplify that further. Other people amplify it even further, sharing it out. They say, look at this gruesome car crash. Oh, it's a big problem. Look at this mass shooting. Obviously, ban guns. This is, though, cancer within society. What's happened is that people who are not personally touched by any of these problems at all act as though those problems were taking place right next to them. And there's very little happiness and white pilling going on. It's mostly demoralization. What I would stress to people is get a little bit more desensitized to such things. You know, that explosion in that automotive factory happened 1,000 miles away. It's okay to think, well, that's tragic. But to be all day in a gloom because of it doesn't make sense. Instead, work to improve yourself and your community. Plant a garden. There are too many people. You've got land and all you do with it is run over it with a lawnmower and then you fertilize and water it to make it grow faster so you can mow it again. I don't get the concept. Fucking plow the whole lawn up and plant nothing but perennials. Plant a little food forest. Make it a permaculture. Watch Varg's videos. Hugelculture some things. Toss a few turnip seeds in there and reap the rewards. If you're not interested in those vegetables, give it to the poor. Help take care of the homeless or something. Do something positive for your community. And enjoy it. Doesn't have to be hard. Put in some flowers. Beautify your neighborhood. Slap a coat of paint on the old widow's house down the street. If only to raise the market value of your area or, incrementally. Do something good. Learn a new skill. Some of you are decent with language. Maybe you took a few years of Spanish, but you're kind of rusty. Fucking take a course or something. I know what some people say, well, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Dude, a lot of these things don't take a lot of time or money. You'd be very, very surprised. Take a look at, consider my situation. Even when I was dirt poor and had basically nothing, I still had a garden. I realize, it's a little bit of a different situation. I'm not living in downtown Manhattan. You can make do, though. You're living in the city, which, Volkishness would say is a regrettable thing, and I would agree. You could move to the countryside, maybe. Telecommute if you can. If you have to be in one of those ugly concrete jungles, have more houseplants. At least, again, do something positive. Put up a grow lamp and grow a couple of lemon trees. You can literally do that in your apartment. Why not? Squeeze some lemon into your water. Get a little bit more vitamin into your diet. Maybe your bags under your eyes will be a little bit less noticeable at the end of the year than at the beginning. Do something positive. You're looking at the world. A lot of people, I think the majority of you probably, you look at the world and you see primarily darkness and bad things. Well, why not try to reverse it a little bit? Again, if each person made a tiny change in their life, was just a little bit more decent or a little bit more hardworking, it would be amplified on the societal level many times over. We're talking about tiny changes that require almost no effort. If you got a little bit more exercise, you ate a little bit less corn syrup, you drank a little bit less beer, you'd be healthier. You would be healthy. Give up one vice in favor of a better habit. Break the habit, you're smoking or something. Don't go into the 2020s and being a smoker. Say, no, fuck it, enough. Imagine all the money that I'll save. Maybe I can do something better. All that money could be used. I could buy a steak dinner. I could buy my kids more toys or something. That's another thing. Form meaningful, healthy relationships. Try to have kids. Try to reproduce. Dude, I mean, who's going to make the world better if not you and your kin? You can't expect nanny government to do it. That obviously doesn't work. You can't expect a church to do it. The light of the churches is going out of the world as people abandon them in droves. There's a reason for that. It's because they haven't improved anything. All of the orders and organizations, corporations, we're pledged to make things family friendly and deliver Wi-Fi to African villagers, and nothing happens. There are still homeless, there are still people starving, and a lot of people would rather judge or throw blame around than improve their own lives. It is in improving yourself that these conditions are alleviated. That's the only way to do it. It used to be that voluntary orders in the last Volkish movement disproportionately organized things, fraternal organizations and so forth. A lot of them don't exist anymore. Form clubs. Form local bodies, under whatever auspices you want, religious, irreligious, fraternal order, maternal order, general order that people can just belong to. Try to organize things a little. A lot of you have extra time. Now, I find it, people play video games. They create all these elaborate fantasy worlds where things are better than they are in the real world, to the exclusion of taking any effort to make the real world better, and then they wonder why the real world sucks. By the way, here's a little bit of a light pill for you. The world doesn't suck as much as you think. Most of you have ready access to food and a roof over your head. 100 years ago, a disproportionately much higher proportion of the population didn't. Half of them weren't even literate, and that's in the developed world. Things in the world have improved. Disease has been pushed to the sides. I realize there's a lot of problems with postmodernism. Things are getting more alienated and odd by the day. Push back. Create something beautiful. You hate postmodernism? Well, make an alternative to it and promulgate it. Subvert subversion, if that's what you see in the society around you. Use the internet. Use technology to alienate technology. Make videos encouraging people, like I am right now, to improve their lives. Stop being negative and saying, well, here's your daily news. Here's the 7 top things that went wrong in the world today. It's great to talk about things when they go wrong. From a distance, you can have a bit of sardonic humor. You can sarcastically look at why the wrong happened and how stupid people can be. Remind them, though, once in a while. Ultimately, those things are largely distant from them. You've got all these people in the world convinced there's a shooting epidemic in the U.S., when 99.9% of them have never even witnessed a shooting. They're convinced that it's a huge societal issue, and yet they've never even been party to it. You've got people that are convinced that there are so many issues in the world, but they themselves don't take part. And it's almost like a tribal memory a la Steiner. The internet has drawn people together so that people are witnessing a problem in Taiwan or Afghanistan as though it was in their living room simply because it's on TV or on the internet. Well, it's not, and you can improve their lots too. Constrain your governments. Prevent world policing. Let's try to have a better world and be decent, rational, dignified human beings living in accordance with the laws of nature. It's as simple as that. Asking government to help won't work. Asking a church to help won't work. Asking yourself to pitch in will. Which one's going to be more fruitful? You petition the government to build a ditch, or you fucking grab a shovel? It's as simple as that. Which one makes more sense? Get down on your knees and pray, or get your gloves on and go to work? I've always found the latter to be infinitely more enjoyable anyway, and it's more fruitful. I could sit there and pray for healthy crops, or I can go and I can make my crops healthy. That's true pride. That's true civilization. When people take up individual effort, you don't need as much collective effort anyway. When people are doing their part voluntarily, you don't need fucking communism. You don't need authoritarianism. Society falls into order itself as long as people have that sense, civically or nationally or whatever, of that responsibility that they have, and they're working largely in a positive way. There will always be a miscreant, there will always be a shooting, there will always be a rapist, there will always be an economic downturn. You can resist these things more if you take individual effort into consideration. Learn simple skills. Oh, if you only knew some of the receipt books of the Victorian era and before, like in the early 1800s in some cases, you wouldn't believe the number of tips and tricks that right now you've got some commercial products standing in for. Like, oh, how to whiten your teeth, how to remove stains on clothes. You're buying some fucking product made in Malaysia to do what you could do with some herb that's probably a pestilent growing in your neighborhood. I mean, it's actually astonishing how this works. Simple homeopathy would be just as effective as modern medicine if cancer and viruses didn't exist, by the way. This is something I've heard from people with medical degrees, so I'm going to take it to the bank. Do something positive. You know, I'm a little bit biased, but I would start with trying to learn how to grow a few plants, you know, eat them, prepare them, learn to cook a few meals. You don't have to learn how to cook the whole cookbook. Learn how to cook a few things. And then maybe your spouse, your kids, everyone pitches in and take turns cooking and have all sorts of rotating delicacies. Once you realize how fun it can be, you know, even cooking something very basic, you'll probably want to learn more anyway. Then you can teach others about it. Let's teach one another our various skills. It's capable of doing it. What, are you saying that people are so irrational and terrible and fell and horrible and black-pilled now that they can't do what people back before electricity was common could do? I don't believe that. I believe we have every possible advantage if we actually keep it in mind. That's about all. Peace out.